It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
On the Happy Families Podcast, we tackle some tricky topics from time to time, and today is one of those days. Hello, my name's Dr. Justin Coulson. I'm delighted to introduce to you today the author of the well-known Rhyme Time books, somebody named Lellie Lopter. That is, of course, a pen name, a pseudonym. But Lellie Lopter has a brand new book out that we really think is worthy of some discussion and some exploration in today's podcast. According to publishers who won't publish the book because of the subject matter, it is a new, flawless, almost perfect children's book. The book is called My Brother Born Sleeping. I think that I might struggle to get through this interview because I'm getting weepy just introducing the author and the name of the book. By now, you probably know what it's about. So I will just share a quick content warning that some families may have been through some trauma around this or may have young children who may not understand what we're going to talk about, and parent advisory may be advised for our conversation about miscarriage and stillborn babies today. Lellie Lopter is a mum to 3 kiddos, one who didn't survive pregnancy. And Lellie joins me right now. Lellie, tell me about your family, particularly your baby who didn't make it to be with us now.
So I was very young when I lost my baby. I lost my ovary, I lost my relationship all at the same time. And I think because of how I had become pregnant, people kept telling me how lucky I was. And certainly during that time, I didn't feel lucky at all. Quite the opposite. And I went to pieces, absolutely went to pieces. And rightly so, because I was allowed to go to pieces because I was on my own. I was young. I was able to grieve in a way that was comfortable for me. But then years later, when my sister went through a stillborn, she had 2 kids already. And watching her trying to keep it together when I knew in my heart how much she was grieving, how devastated she was, and trying to be strong for her kids, her niece and her nephew, it was unbelievably challenging to try and support her during that. And I had my kids asking questions, and she had her kids, my niece and her nephew, that everyone had a different say, a different reason behind what had happened. And my experience influenced how I had those conversations with my children and how involved my children were in that process and asking those questions. And children want to explore subjects naturally. They're just naturally curious little creatures. And when a subject is hard to speak about and when you're going through that grieving process, then shutting kids down isn't helpful for either the kids or the parents. And this book was written as a way of trying to start those conversations as a family about when a baby is born sleeping, why that might be. It's not a medical tome. It's not a cure-all. It's just a conversation starter so that people can have those conversations around how is it best to grieve as a family.
Lellie, let's zoom all the way out for just a second. How common is stillbirth? How common is miscarriage?
So stillbirth, there's over 2 million babies around the world that are born sleeping every year. And there's over 5,000 just in Australia every year. Miscarriage is one of those statistics that's very, very difficult to pinpoint. It's estimated at being 8 to 10 times more than what stillbirth is, but there's a lot of data around it. It may be much more than that because people suffer in silence. They don't seek medical attention, or the medical attention it's glossed over and the stats just aren't reported in some countries. So it's very difficult to get a global take on how many babies actually don't make it.
I might just dive in here and ask for a definition. There may be some people who are listening who are not familiar or have just not encountered stillbirth. I think the percentage of people who wouldn't know would be quite low, but it's still worth just spending a moment and defining what that is medically.
So I think medically, a stillborn baby is one that's born over a certain weight or over a certain number of weeks. Off the top of my head, I think it's 24 weeks. And the Australian government actually supports families to a certain point, but there's very little support for miscarriage or for early pregnancy loss. And there's now a foundation called Pink Elephant who do take on some of that emotional support for those families and for those women experiencing that. Like I said, I was so young, I had no support during when it happened to me. I very quiet, didn't reach out, didn't seek the support that I definitely needed. And it really wasn't until I had my recent hysterectomy that I even started to process that trauma. And bringing this book into the world was such a cathartic experience because it helped me not just to process what had happened to myself and to my family, my extended family with my sister and her kids, but also looking at how I could include other people. So all of the illustrators involved also have their connection with stillborn or pregnancy loss, or I've got some of the illustrators are rainbow babies themselves. So rainbow baby is a term for a child that is born after a pregnancy or infant loss. And, one of the illustrators is her mum's rainbow baby. One is their mum is a rainbow baby. One has aunties that they never got to meet because they died in infancy. One has helped a friend through infant loss themselves very recently. We've got people that have had miscarriages, people that have had stillborns. And when I put the call out on social media to ask if there would be any illustrators interested in helping me bring this book to publication, I put a question in that sort of survey asking if they had a connection to the subject and what that connection was. And I was absolutely overwhelmed with the stories of people and the connections and how many people were affected by this just in that little pool of talent that were illustrators. And the prevalence is much larger than what people realise because it's so unreported and people don't talk about it. Even amongst their friends, they don't talk about it.
While you were talking, Lellie Lopter, I just quickly Googled, and the World Health Organization indicates that stillbirth occurs once every 16 seconds. That's what the 2 million plus stillborn babies per year equates to, one every 16 seconds. So when you say that this is happening a lot more than we realize, I think that statistic gives us a sense of the enormity of this challenge. Kylie and I have a wonderful couple of friends who they had several children when they also experienced loss through stillbirth. And I still remember watching, I thought they handled it so well. It's such a hard thing to go through.
So what did you notice when that happened?
I was actually really confronted by it initially. This was many years ago. I don't know if I'd even done my studies at this point, or maybe I was going through my study experience. And they had a photographer come in and take photos of them holding their precious baby. They've got a family portrait with the whole family there. I think they had maybe 3 or 4 other kids at the time, maybe even 5, I can't quite remember. They have a large family, and they were all standing there holding the baby. And as an outsider who hadn't thought about it from any kind of an empathic perspective, I found it really confronting and quite macabre.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as I reflected, we walk into their home and we see a family photo of their family holding their baby, and it's all of them.
Yeah.
And I think in hindsight, as much as it seemed a little bit difficult for me to process as an outsider at the time, it opens up conversations. It allows the family to talk about their sibling who was lost, who didn't survive. And I can't help but think that it must be so reassuring for them, not just in the moment, but ongoingly as they have friends and acquaintances walk into their home and say, "Oh, I didn't know you had that many children." And they have the opportunity to say, "Actually, we lost one. That baby was stillborn." It's so, I presume, so healing for them as they process that consistently.
Yeah, and often it's not until we become parents ourselves that we can understand all of those nuances that, that the grieving process changes when you become a parent, and you include the family in that process. And just 16 seconds, if it's every 16 seconds, it took me 10 years to be able to talk about what happened to me and 20 years to bring this book out. And it was it's flabbergasted me that, every 16 seconds. And for that family, they're able to have that conversation. That's one of the things that really is recommended for stillbirth, is to help the families grieve. Some hospitals actually have cuddle cots now where you can take the baby home and have that experience of bringing the baby into the nursery. And the facilities that are available now and the support that is available now and those networks that are available now, it changes the conversation and it starts a conversation.
So, Lellie, the book is called My Brother Born Sleeping. Part of me wants to ask you to tell me all about the book, but I think the conversation we've had so far is sufficient to give parents a strong sense of what this is about. As part of you publishing this book, you've developed a special relationship with Red Nose Day. Why don't you tell me a bit about that and how purchasing the book will make a difference in the lives of parents who are suffering and struggling with loss?
Absolutely. Well, the book was just one part of the process or one part of the project. And the project brought together not just the physical book that parents would be able to access and read to their children when they need it, but also a video which is available free online on YouTube immediately. So as soon as a family is put in the situation of needing to have this conversation, that video is there. It's illustrated. It's read by children. So the children that need the message are getting that message or getting the information from
other children. Beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's the project incorporates both. But when we were putting it together, it was kind of an oversight that we realised that this book might accidentally make some money. And that was never the intention. The intention was to create a resource. Right. And then when we realised that it might make some money, then we partnered with Red Nose to make sure that every cent from every sale goes to them to support them. They fund research. They support families. The work that they do is just incredible. And the network that they have in the support that they provide to people, it's not just to the parents. They also provide support to families, and they provide resources that can help people like yourself as a friend of someone who has gone through infant loss, so that you could see why the family might take that time to have those.
And that's the thing, isn't it, Lily? It's not just for the people who are suffering. It's for people who are friends of those who are going through it.
Absolutely.
So that we know how to support.
Yeah. Exactly. And one of the illustrators, that was what drew them towards the project to begin with. They're from the LGBTQI community, and one of their friends had just recently suffered a stillborn, and not knowing how to approach those conversations or what to do, and being a part of this project, they were able to then start those conversations and create an environment where it was safe to talk about this subject. And those conversations, they go such a long way.
If people want to know more, where can they see the video and where can they find My Brother Born Sleeping?
So either the Lellie Lopter website or www.theknowledgecentre.com.au. And the video is just available on YouTube. And like I said, it's free, it's available, and it's a resource. So even if you know someone that has gone through a pregnancy or infant loss, and just send them the link and say, I know that you're hurting. There's nothing I can do, but I found this and it might help. And sometimes just that reaching out can be enough to start that conversation, which will start the healing process. And we can get more people involved in the healing process, then it's one of those things that it's never going to be fully healed, but being in a safe environment where you can talk about what has happened, how it's happened, and include children in that journey of healing as well.
Lellie Lopter is the author of the well-known Rhyme Time books and a new and really special book called My Brother Born Sleeping. All proceeds from the book, as mentioned, go to Red Nose Day. Lellie, thanks so much for joining me on the Happy Families podcast to talk about this really important and not often talked about topic.
Thank you so much, Justin.
The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. If you would like more information, our show notes are full of as much as we can cram in there about what Lellie Lopter has done with this book, My Brother Born Sleeping. Please visit our show notes for more, or check out happyfamilies.com.au for resources to make your family happier.